Hey everybody, welcome to our weekly video and my first car video. Here we go. I'm going to start with a little joke. This is one of my favorites. There's a fellow, let's call him Mr. Cohen, decides he wants to change his name. And so he goes to the court, the county, wherever it is, and he says to I think you have to go to a judge, and he says, I want to change my name. Okay, what do you want to be? I want to be Mr. Stevens. Okay, changes his name. All's fine and good. Anyway, a couple weeks later, he's back in the court. I want to change my name again. The judge says to him, what do you mean? He says, yep, I want to be, Mr. Mariano's. I'm right outside Mariano's, so let's make a nice Italian name. And the judge looks at him and says, what's going on? Why do you change your name a second time? He says, whenever I tell someone my name is Mr. Stevens, they ask me the question, so what was it before? There's something interesting about a name. We're very attached to our name, especially our first name. When I've been reading about the hostages and people have been killed and all this terrible stuff that's been going on since October 7th, it's very easy to look at them as just numbers, statistics. But then you read their name, you read their life story, their family, and it becomes very real. I always advise people when they're making announcements, make sure to announce the name of the people, the first name, the last name. It's very personal. We're attached to our names, no question about it, and we want people to get our names correct, and we want people to say it appropriately and address us correctly, and so on. This is an interesting thing because this week's Torah portion is shemot. Shemot means names. The names of the Jewish people when they went down to Egypt. Lists the families of Jacob. 70 people went down to Egypt. And it starts out, these are the names of the people, at least the tribes, Reuven and Shimon and so on. The names are very important. But the rabbis tell us that actually the exodus from Egypt came about in the merit of three things. The merit that the Jewish people kept their language, they maintained their dress, the clothing, I guess, that Abraham and Isaac and Jacob wore. They did not adopt Egyptian clothing. And they maintained their names. They continued to give their children the names that were Hebrew names. It's interesting because wherever Jews have been, they have not maintained the language of the Hebrew language. To the contrary, even within Israel, they adopted foreign languages. And even dress, we don't dress like the Jews dressed 3,000 years ago. This jacket, I don't know what jacket it is. It's Joseph A. Banks or something. I don't always wear Jewish clothing. And many of us have no problem if somebody's called Steve or my father was called Derek. Nobody worried about that. Nobody said, oh my goodness, you cannot have that name. But it is true that we speak English and we dress American, European, whatever clothing. But we do have Jewish names. And people make a point, a very important point, of giving their children a Jewish name. In fact, yesterday, I was at two places. Yesterday, I visited someone whose father had just died, counseling them on Shiva, the burial, which is going to be out of town. And I said, do you know his Jewish name? And of course they did. Dan ben Yitzchak, of blessed memory. And knowing his name now means that the rabbi who's going to officiate can say his Jewish name, which he was given at his bris, when he says the memorial prayer. It can go on the gravestone if they want. When we call someone to the Torah, we call their Jewish name. When we pray for someone on someone's behalf, we say their Hebrew name and their mother's Hebrew name. So knowing the name is very important. Even if somebody is called Steve, but his Jewish name is Shmuel, it's important that the child and the adult remember and know that name. All too often I meet someone at the hospital and I say, I would like to pray for you. Do you know your Jewish name? And maybe they don't remember it. Do you know your mother's Jewish name? And many times they have no idea. So I guess the point of this is that even though we do have no problem with people having English names. We do give our children Jewish names. And it is important that they know it. Maybe every now and then, call them by that name. So if your kid's name is Mike, maybe call them, hey, Michael, how are you? It's a nice thing to remind them that's their Jewish name, not just when they had their bar bat mitzvah or, some other Jewish event. Make that a part of their lifestyle, that they have a Jewish name. I try to do that with students when I find their Jewish name. Call them by that name every now and then. It's a beautiful thing, and it's something that we should be proud of, carry with us, and wear proudly. And with that, I'll wish you a good Shabbos.